All right.
So now we're going to have a single woman problem. A single woman problem.
Yay. All right, so for single woman prob this week, let's talk about parallel parenting. It is apparently a thing.
And what is that, Bonnie?
From what I have read, the definition of parallel parenting is when two parents cannot co-parent. And so they're actually parenting independently with no discussion or help from each other. One does at their house whatever it is they want to. The other one does at their house whatever it is they want to, because for some reason, one of the parents refuses to cooperate and create a co-parenting relationship together.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I think sometimes it's both parents. But
yeah, sometimes
a lot of times,
yes,
in my experience, it's one parent throwing a roadblock out constantly.
Or
and
just,
it's not even about the parenting. It's about one parent is mad or upset at the other parent. So in order to stick it to them, they create a problem with everything. They just won't agree or they just won't talk. In my case, there was no communication.
Yeah, I have that too.
Mine would say, my ex would say, I'm done texting now.
When things there was a conflict.
Because he didn't want to have a conversation, so he'd say, I have done my quota of texting for today.
See, and
quote unquote.
Mine does that too.
Mine would say, you just want me to agree with you. He wouldn't actually have a discussion, because discussion meant it was an argument, and an argument meant I needed to win, which was never really the case. But so he would end it there because he.
Mm-hmm. I had that too.
Yeah.
So I think this comes into play. I mean, even with older kids, but really with the younger set, when you have to have coordination of even something as simple as drop off and pick up times can become this whole convoluted power struggle thing. And you know, the only person that really gets hurt in the whole thing is the kid.
Right.
And you know, you don't want that.
Well, and with parallel parenting, and I'm sure I just don't know enough about it, but I don't understand how it doesn't hurt the kid if it's not consistent some things across two households. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think maybe not forward thinking, maybe thinking in the moment, I'll show her or I'll show him. You don't think, okay, if you make the kid late to school, or if you make the kid miss an activity, or if you make a kid not go to something. We had like the whole Pinewood Derby thing that my kid had won the year before. The next year, the dad was too busy to do that because he was doing girlfriend things. And so he bribed the kid not to do it. I mean, you know, you want your kids to feel successful, to feel included, to feel loved, to feel
and to understand how to be a team player,
understand how to do things,
how to make a commitment and keep it.
Yeah.
Exactly. So
and not taking them to their things, or I mean that's setting them up for failure at something they said they do.
Yes.
But it is teaching them not to follow through with commitments.
Yeah, it's teaching them it's okay. If you don't want to, you don't have to.
You don't have to.
But see, that doesn't
and that's not how the world doesn't work that way.
The next time the kid goes to that activity,
they're behind.
Not only are they behind, but they've let every single person that was waiting for them, if they played a sport or if they're doing theater or if they do dance or whatever, every single person that was doing that dance number or that play or that sport, every single other kid is going to have a chip on their shoulder against your kid because you met that kid caused havoc and they didn't get to practice the way it's supposed to be practiced.
Well, and that's
it's inconsiderate.
Yeah. So my ex-husband, when my daughter, she did competition cheer for a couple of years, and I went out of town and he had to take her, and because she was upset and didn't want to go, he let her quit.
Not just not go, but
let her quit, and he blessed out the coach and was banned from the facility. So it was like you can't. I mean, so even though he took her, it was worse.
Yeah, that is bad.
I feel like I'm in a constant state right now of playing catch up when my son is with me, because we have joint custody. It's right down the middle, so I'll see my son 2 days a week and then every other weekend. and it's often that I'm having to play catch up on schoolwork with him.
Well,
when he's
that's
with
the
me.
worst.
so schoolwork
And then-
is not important at the other house.
I mean, that's what I'm assuming.
If it's not getting done, it's not a priority.
Like just having to I have to remind my ex-husband of things all the time that my son has to do, and he gets irritated when I remind him, but then he doesn't take him to those things.
It does
And
not
so
taking
what
him
am I going to
anyway.
do? And my therapist told me to start texting my ex and my son about activities so that they
Yeah.
Both get it.
and that doesn't help either. So
Well, but your son is still awfully young.
yeah, he's young.
He's not in a place to say, okay, I really need to go.
Yeah.
And he's probably not really realizing how much
Well,
he's missing yet because
so-
there hasn't been a big consequence yet because he's so
And
young.
Even when we were married, I've always been the scheduler. I am the one who knows what's going on. And anyway, so I think what I'm going to start doing is writing my son's schedule down on a piece of paper every week and handing it to him so that he can look at it and know exactly what he's doing what day so that he can say something.
Okay.
Yes.
If you will.
Along that lines, when my child was much younger,
Mhm.
the running joke in my family was, we're going to buy Dad a calendar and put everything on it. He would never accept it. We never follow through with an entire calendar, but I did my planner that I had and took pictures of it. But a very wise friend told me, if it's a school activity, they can look it up on the school event calendar.
I'm
too.
sorry, that's what my
And
ex-husband.
it's true.
Yes,
Yeah.
especially when you have older ones. He wanted to know when she was cheering, and I was sending the link to the website to the school. I'm like, she's 14. You're welcome to look it up yourself. I don't
Is
have to be
this
a secretary
every other
anymore.
parent?
I don't
Yeah.
mean to sound sexist or but is this a man thing that they
No.
just don't know what's
No.
going on?
No.
Okay.
No, but I think
No,
it is.
because there are plenty of men who keep up with the sports schedule more than their wives, who keep up with the extracurricular activities more than the wife. There are plenty of married and divorced and separated people on this planet
Who do
that
it
put
together.
their child first and their activities first. So it's not that it can't be done, it's that the person that's resisting just
Doesn't want to.
think it's important or doesn't want to.
Well, and I think part of, granted, my ex-husband was an alcoholic, and so he had a mushy brain and couldn't think of things anyway. But he still expected me to behave the way that I did when we were married. He still expected me to text him and remind him. And I did share our digital calendar, and I ended up taking him off because he told me it was too busy to look at. So, I mean, it's one of those, I tried to give him so he could look and see everything, but he said there was too much on it. And so I was like, okay. So, so I rescinded the offer. I mean, but but he expected me. And so I, as a part of a boundary that I set when we divorced was, I'm no longer going to do these things for you. You may go to the website and you can look and see when or you can communicate. Your child has a phone. You can communicate with your child. They're old enough for this. You can build a relationship with them. I don't have to tell you. You can do that with your child at this point. It's not like my kid was 6. My kid was all my children were teenagers when we divorced. So if he wanted to know something, he could have texted them.
We had some problems, and I think if you come out of a marriage or a relationship where you are the keeper of the schedule or you are the planner, like I was. I actually had this conversation. It's probably going to go in my book because it's so outlandish. I got a phone call, a rare phone call from my ex because he doesn't talk on the phone. And he only texts in certain incremental times. He called me to see what cleaner we used. He called me to see if I would run an errand for him. It was like, I'm not your Girl Friday anymore. That is part of
That's the
the
deal.
fabulous package that you chunked in the trash.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen for you anymore. Can you believe that?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, you
But I
canceled
have-
your plan.
I have
You've
now
canceled your
You
subscription.
canceled
Yeah.
your subscription.
now that my daughter is a certain age, anything and all things go through her.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, if your dad wants to know something, you need to text him. If you want him to come to an honor society induction or you want him to come to a ball game, you need to tell him where it is, when it is, and how to buy his ticket.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because for a long time, when we moved here, he would call me and say, "Can you buy my ticket?" or "Where do I get my ticket?" I'm not doing that, buddy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the ex. Get your new girlfriend to do that. I'm not in charge of that anymore.
Right.
And that was very freeing for me, not to have to try to make it all better and make all the cogs work it all the time for everybody. That wasn't my job anymore.
Well, and that's a boundary that is hard.
It's very hard
to set because I know that if my ex didn't show up for my daughter for things, because really so her and my son had a senior year in high school when we divorced or whatever. So if he didn't show up for either one of them for their things, I knew it hurt them, but I had to divorce myself from the fact that I divorced myself from thinking that I was responsible for his relationship with his kids.
Right.
Yeah.
I am
You
not.
can't.
And I am also not responsible for his lack of parenting.
Mm-hmm.
So for your kid who's not showing up and not being able to go to his things, at some point it is going to bug him to the point where it's going to become important that he goes, and he's going to start asking to go. And either you're going to start filling that role, your ex is finally going to say, "Okay, you need to come get him and take him."
Yeah.
Or he's going to start taking him.
Yeah.
But until your kid is old enough to realize or to actually see that this is hurting him in any way, he's not old enough. He's not into these activities where it's truly it's truly affecting him yet.
Yeah.
But when it does, it'll be when he's realized when the consequences hit the kid.
Yeah.
Things might change.
Things shifted a lot for us when my daughter kind of got to the age where she was texting her dad this and this, and he would come up with excuses why he couldn't come when she'd ask him to do things. Or I would just say it this way, she got an insight into what I was dealing with the scheduling and with the activities and with the money and with the paying for the activities and all that. I just let her peek into it. Now, she was older, high school, before she really got the true picture. But I'm going to tell you that it changed our relationship. It changed it for the better, because she finally kind of was like, okay, he doesn't answer my texts and he doesn't do this and he does. I thought, welcome to my world. I'd sing it, but I can't sing it like
my son forgot. So I got my son a cell phone, but like the kind that doesn't get on social media. And thinking like he would use it, and he doesn't really that much. But tonight we realized that he was missing like most of the things that he needed to be with me the next few days. So he was like, "I'm gonna call my dad," and he called his dad and he was like, "Where is this? And am I still grounded from my iPad?" And I was like, "Okay, like this." Maybe he's starting to see that he can do that. Like he can
that's good.
call and communicate, and we were able to go and get it, because if I text my ex-husband, he typically doesn't respond to me about things unless it's too...
It's different when it comes
that's
from the
terrible.
kid. It does. It sounds terrible. It's not like you're using your kid to get information.
No.
It's the kid needs to have his own voice.
Yeah, but also when
Find
it's
their
things they
voice.
need, it is completely unfair not to meet it. Like when it's their activities, if it's his medicine, he had left his medicine at home. Schoolwork, like you have to respond to that. You have to. And I am often SOL in that regard.
And
when it
I
comes
guess
to
you say
communicating
you
with my ex.
have to respond to that, but clearly you don't.
Yeah.
Because you don't have someone who is responding, which I guess is the definition of parallel parenting. So, all of the reminding and all, it's not doing any good.
Flip side, and I don't know, maybe I'm just a sucker, but his dad texted me that he was grounded from his iPad because this is just kind of, I giggled at this, so I'm just going to share it. He locked his dad in his bedroom. And I felt bad that it made me giggle, but it did. I had to try real hard to keep a straight face. But he locked his dad in his bedroom, and so he got grounded from his iPad. So my ex-husband texted me and said, he is grounded from his iPad until tomorrow. He can't use it. And I respected that. I said, okay. And my boyfriend was like, I'm kind of surprised you're like following through with that, given how he is about things. And I said, my son did something he shouldn't have done. He's got it from his iPad. I get that, and I'm going to support that. Like, that's not
Well,
ridiculous.
but at the same
discipline.
time, you know, you can't, as a parent who loves your kid, you can't really play tit for tat. You do what you know is best for your kid. And consistency and discipline, even if your ex never respects a boundary you set that way with your kid, the fact that you are is teaching your kid
Yes.
that I respect boundaries that other people set,
Yeah.
and I'm going to follow through with something if I, you know, and I think that's important.
And the other thing, so I was talking to my stepdad, who I adore my stepfather. We were talking about just some things that had happened recently, and I said, look, there's all kinds of things that I can't control. Like, I can't control what happens when my son is not with me. I can't control that he's missed so many dance classes. It makes me want to cry because I'm paying for them. But what I can control is what he does when he's with me. I can control how happy the time is and what we're accomplishing and
Well, and you can show him the sort of person you want him to be.
Yeah.
You can, which, you know, and hopefully he does not understand the because I guess it's hard. It's for me when I look at the parallel parenting thing. To me, it feels very disrespectful when you're not communicating with the other person who created the kid with you about the kid in a way that's best for the kid. That feels incredibly disrespectful.
Especially when communication is about the kid. I mean,
yes.
Because the truth is, if I didn't have a child, there would be absolutely no reason for me to ever communicate with my ex-husband.
It's not like your child was a surprise.
No.
It was your child was a planned child in a marriage union. Do you know what I mean? But it just when you plan a kid together, you're agreeing to parent this child forever, and when you just opt out of co-parenting, it just, I don't know, but I understand that that's probably, I mean, it's in some situations I can see where it's less communication with the ex, and that's excellent. I just, you know, I
have gotten to that point. My communication is minimal. Of course, my daughter is much older now, but it was very hard when the pickup and drop off times were skewed, and he was always late. But if I was 5 minutes late, he would call me.
Yeah.
Every 5 minutes, say, "Where are you? Where are you?" I can't
double standards. It's okay for me to be late, but not you. And
double standard.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, I think a lot of this, that if we treated them the way they treated us, they would not be happy about it.
Oh no.
But I'm not going to do that and put my kid in the middle of it.
Exactly.
Well, and I know that my ex and I we did not parent the same. And because he did not agree with my parenting when we were married, he just didn't parent. Because he was a lot harsher and than I felt was necessary in a lot of ways. And I wonder if he had continued to live, would we have ended up parallel parenting in a lot of ways, because he would not agree with me with things. You know, it just it's a, anyway.
Yeah, it's hard. I think the main thing, you know, when you're in that situation that's helped me is to disconnect from it. His problem with me, or his problem not being organized or not taking the time to find the schedule or look it up, not putting the importance of the activity with the child front and center.
Mm-hmm.
I really had to disconnect and say that has nothing to do with me.
Yeah,
it's not, and this was the biggest part for me. It was not a reflection on my parenting.
No.
It was not a reflection on me.
Yeah.
It had nothing to do with me, and I had to separate that so that I could get the anger and the
you can't control the way your ex parents, and you can't control the way what he feels is important in your child's life and what is not. You can only control those things when they're at your house.
Exactly.
And that was so hard
for me too, especially, you know, at the first, when I first got divorced, my ex was very unstable, but I had to send my child over there into that, and I did not want to do it. And I had to do it. And thank the Lord that I had people that watched out after her when she was over there, because it was I had no control over it. And that's when I really started realizing I have really no control over most of this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just going to have to give it up and concentrate on me and breathing and doing what I think is
showing
right
her,
by
showing
my
her,
child.
giving her the
Model the behavior
model
that I
in your
want
own
her
home.
to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a hard place to be, and the first reaction you have is anger. I can't believe you're doing this.
Well, but you expect
have
to
get
co-parent.
rid
You
of that.
expect
Well,
for your
You have to
baby
lower
work
your
together.
expectations.
And I think too,
Really.
like you expect. So, like I think when I was married, like when I was parenting with my ex-husband at the house, we at least like we had very different thoughts about what marriage was, I think. But our values in parenting were relatively similar, and my son never missed anything he was involved in. Like it was all about, and now it just feels like maybe.
So you've got to wonder, was that really his value, or was that yours and he went along with it?
Maybe,
you know,
yeah.
but it doesn't matter, because now it's not a value to him,
Right.
Yeah.
and you have to and there's nothing you can do about that.
Well, and you also have an extraneous that we don't have. Your ex is remarried, has a whole new family, so maybe the emphasis, I mean, it could be him, or it could be they already had plans, or she wanted to do. You also have another whole person that you have no control over how they react to the
and how they
situation.
influence the
And
situation.
that you have no
yeah.
idea what goes on over there. So
Right.
that's a whole nother, you bring another person into it, then you have a whole new set of
Right.
other problems. So I think it's just hard because, and I think what we keep saying is we expect, but I think when you're in our situation and you're divorced or separated or trying to co-parent, I have had to lower my expectations of my ex to 0,
Mm-hmm.
the lowest common denominator, and then from there I'm just pleasantly surprised if he shows up for things or if he does
But
things
don't you
that
feel
I
like
think
that
he
was
should do.
best for your kid? If you have
It's-
zero expectations
It's been
of
wonderful.
your ex, it means you have no animosity and anger
Mhm.
when they're not doing what you know that they should be doing.
Mm-hmm.
And if you accept parallel parenting, I'm going to parent. All I can do is me and what I do with my kid.
Mhm.
That in some ways, letting go of that anger and expectation is very freeing.
It is. It's made a world of difference in my life, like in my mental and emotional reactions to things.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not saying I don't get mad every once in a while when he pulls a little trick, but
Right. But
Now
you're
I
not
just- now I
constantly
just have to say-
expecting.
well, I personally think that's a pretty poor choice, but
Yeah, but you're not constantly
with it.
expecting him to do things that
No.
you feel he should be doing.
I don't expect anything out of him.
Yeah.
Nothing. Nothing.
I think a lot of it will change for me when my son is old enough to at least communicate his needs better, or like what his schedule is,
Well, I think also, okay, that's the first little step. The
Mhm.
second step is when they get their voice and they communicate their wants and their expectations. Because
Yeah.
when a child comes to you
That's a
and
really
says,
good point.
I want to do this and you've made me late or you didn't let me
Yeah.
do this,
Mhm.
it's a whole different ball game.
Yeah, you're right.
I saw a huge change in my ex when my daughter found her voice
Mm-hmm.
and said, you can't do this and you can't do this and this makes me unhappy. It was
Yeah.
like a whole turnaround because it had nothing to do with me, and I think, when your little child looks at you and says, you let me down, or I feel bad, or you made me sad, or you made me cry, it's a whole different
Or
thing.
I'm expected to do
Mhm.
this and you're keeping me from being
Mhm.
able to do what I need to do.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And believe me, it all comes out. They figure it out. They figure out the whole dynamic before you realize they figure it out. So there's no use in trying to exert your control or have everything your way, or have your expectations and have your ex do this, and this. That's just futile. you might as well just live your life and have low expectations, and then anything that happens in the positive is a happy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But it's crummy when you're in the middle of it.
Yeah.
It's crummy when your kids are little.
It's just so frustrating for your kid.
It
like,
is.
Well, but it's going to be very. But does your kid realize it's frustrating yet?
He knows he misses things. I mean,
Okay.
he's starting to really know because
So this disappointing.
I'll say, did you go to dance? Did you do this? No. I was supposed to do that. Like it's starting
Yeah.
to be that.
Okay.
Well, he's almost to the age
Yeah.
where he'll be like, "You made me miss something,"
Yeah.
Mhm.
and then it'll change a little bit
Yeah.
because
Well, and isn't it crazy that a 2-parent household can't seem to make it to things when the 1-parent household dominates and is able to accomplish all of the things? It's crazy to me.
I mean, my schedule is flexible. Oh, and that's the other thing is like it's written that like if in our order that if he can't get into an activity, he can drop him off with me to take. And never not one time has he asked me to do that, even though he can't seem to get into the activities. And I'm
Well, and
like,
if he won't respond to you, you
What?
can't actually go in
Yes.
and take care of
so
that.
like, why wouldn't you do? Like, I'm ready, willing, and my schedule is usually flexible enough that I can make anything work.
Mhm.
Typically, unless I've got an important meeting, I can flex for 15 minutes to take.
Hey, how about this for an idea? Because most two parent working families do this. Hire a teenager to take it.
Yeah,
How about that?
yeah, but it's not. Anyway, I mean, we used to do that.
But that
Yeah.
might not be the issue.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You got another party in there involved too.
Sure.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah. So at the end of the day, one of our single woman problems is we can only do the best that we can do, right? You can only
Yes.
control what you can control.
yes.
And really, even what's within your control, you don't have that much control of because a lot of things can happen. So you just have to make the best of the situation,
Mm-hmm.
and eventually, it will figure itself out.
Right.
Kind of is what we're getting at.
Well, okay,
Yeah,
you brought
I
up a
think
very
that's
good
true.
point. In high school, one of the things I always told my teenagers, and even my own kids, was if they were having a big issue with friends, I'm like, okay, look at me. Who can you control? You. That's it. You can only control yourself.
Yeah.
And once you realize that and truly accept that, and
Well-
that everybody else's decisions have more about
And-
them than you, then
And
it's easier.
You can't control what other people do, but you can control how you react to it.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And I think on the other side, if you give 100% and you do the right thing by your kid and for yourself,
Yeah, if you can confidently say that.
yes,
I'm doing X, Y, and Z really well. I know
Yes.
that I am.
And if you can control your reactions
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
what
You can
you
get to a
perceive
point.
as their
yeah,
inability to parent well,
yeah.
and make sure to help you parent well. You know what I mean?
But I think if you show up for your kid and you're consistent and you do the right thing by them, and
Yes.
that has a component of control. You have to control your own emotions about it. If you can just let the other person be the other person, and you consistently show up for your kid, and you consistently do good choices, and you consistently are happy and get them involved in whatever they're supposed to be doing and do the best you can do, then that is the best modeled behavior for your child. If your child is ever in that situation, they can think back and say, my mom did this and I got to do this with my mom, and my mom made sure that I had this, this, and this, and that I was happy, and that contributed to the person that I am. That's the ultimate.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what you want.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can set the boundaries and remember that you can't control the other person, and that if you give control of the relationship your children have with their other parent to the other parent, and you don't try and control the relationship you feel like they should be having with that other parent, if you can let that go, which is so hard to let go because you know what's best for your kid is to have a good relationship with both parents.
But you
And for
can-
both parents to model, a good human for them to model, but you can't do that.
Mm-mm.
You can only, you got to keep it in house. You know, I'm talking about losing, letting go of control of things. I think that's.
Well, think of it this way: if the person met your expectations, and
You wouldn't be
co-parented-
divorced.
You wouldn't be divorced.
Exactly, and co-parented and co-married
That's
person
true.
with you, you would not be divorced. There's a reason you're divorced.
Yes.
Yeah. So hey, make the best of it.
All right,
That's all you
ladies.
can do.
All right.
Make the best
Well,
of it.
here's to parenting on our own.
How's my glass so full?
Single woman problem.
Again. Y'all have a great week. Thank y'all for joining us for Champagne Sunday.
See you next week,
See you
girls.
next week. Yeah, cheers.
Have a good week.
Cheers.
Yeah.
Cheers.